What's up, everybody? So today we are going to do a very low drop fade on this gentleman right here. So what I like to do first, we're going to set the initial guideline, and we want to keep this thing low. So I'm just going a little bit over the ears just so we can get some kind of bald effect on this cut. And I'm going to carry this all the way around to the other side. I'll come in and clean up the bottom after that with the shaver. However, we're just establishing that first guideline. There again, I'm taking it very low in the back. I like to have that little curve over the ears and kind of curve down in the front. So once again, this is our initial guideline. I'm going to speed it up so that way we can get through this haircut in adequate time. And I told you guys before that I'm using my iPhone at the moment just to get more content out so that you guys can have something to watch, but I'm working on getting better video quality here soon. So anyways, we're going into the second guideline, and many people have asked me already, you know, S.Craft, can you go ahead and drop a video using wall seniors fading from the bottom up, because I usually like to fade from the top down. So I decided to do that for you guys. So once again, we are setting the second guideline, and because this is a low drop fade and I'm really wanting to stretch it, because he already had a number 4 on top that he did himself all the way around. So I know that I have to fade into a 4, but I want this drop fade to really stretch. So I took my second guideline and I made it, instead of like a 1/2 inch like maybe what we would usually do, I went ahead and made it around an inch, 1.5 inches wide. So that way we could just stretch this fade out. I've had many people ask me also, how do you get that stretch fade? Well, here it is, man. I'm showing you guys what I do. I like to just stretch out my guidelines in order to get it to look just stretched and not as full. So anyways, what I did after creating that second guideline with the open blade, now I'm just slowly, you know, working my way down. So I'll close the blade halfway, and then I'll fade above the line halfway. So the half goes halfway up, if that makes sense. And then I'll close it a little bit more and work my way down from that halfway mark, and then I'll close it all the way, so that way I can, you know, knock out this line. And what I do is I'll start knocking out the line with the corners of the blade. So if you watch, I'm not actually putting the full blade on there. I'm using the corners. Even when it looks like it's the full blade, sometimes my pressure is being applied just to the corners whenever I'm trying to take that bottom line out. If I'm, you know, going up halfway with it halfway open, then, you know, I'll keep the blade flat. But if I'm trying to take out the line, I'll close it all the way and usually just tap at the line with the corners of the blade. There again, I just open the blade halfway and I'm going halfway up. And then I'll close the blade like I did now, or I'll, you know, close it almost all the way closed, kind of tap right above that line, but then I'll close the blade all the way up and just tap at it with the corners, tap at that line with the corners to get that line out. Sometimes the line doesn't come out with just using the corners of the blade closed, so I'll pull out my, you know, trimmer or T-outliners or whatever and just tap at that line with the corners of my edgers as well. So now I'm going into the number 1 blade. So I went from the open blade to the number 1 guard rather. And now I'll come back in with the half guard, but I always usually just do like no blade, number 1, number 2, number 3, whatever. So whenever I go to create that second or that third guideline rather with the number 1, I'm using that number 1 open. But there again, I'm not doing it like a 1/2 inch. I mean, I'm going like a full inch, maybe 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches, but I'm making my guidelines bigger. So now I just close the blade whenever, or guard rather, or You know what I'm talking about. Anyways, so when I'm using the blade without a guard, I'll open it and then I'll go halfway and I'll close it a little bit more until I'm closed all the way. Whenever I use guards, I just go open, closed. That's it. So I have the number 1 on there right now and it's closed, and I'm just kind of working on that line and maybe even halfway with the 1, because I know that I'm going to put the 0 guard on there and tap at that line that's between the no guard and the number 1. And as you can see, when the hair pattern goes a certain way, I'm always wanting to go against the grain. So if the hair pattern is kind of growing backwards, especially around the back of his head where you may have, different growth patterns, make sure you're going against the grain so that way you can get a good clean cut. So see, this is with the number 1 closed blending in. We're already getting a nice fade already. The blend's coming together, but there still is a little line, specifically more towards the back of the head where it's a little bit harder to get to. But we'll go ahead and put that 0 guard on there, and then we'll start tapping at that line. And as you can see, I'm very gentle with tapping out that line because I don't want to create another line. Sometimes whenever we rush, we actually end up taking more time doing the haircut than when we would just take a little bit more time, slow down a little bit, and try to really isolate the hairs that you want to cut. Also, just so you guys know, some people may be asking, all the wall seniors that I have, whether it's the 1919s or these wall seniors here, I've modified and put the Andis Master Blade on this. So this one has the Andis Master Blade on it, where my other, the 1919, has the Andis Fade Master Blade on it. There's a guy that I've seen on YouTube, I think his name's YouTube Barber Academy, who actually will show you how to modify the bracket so you can put the Andis blade on. It's a real cool thing. Or you can just look up this dude named Filthy Blends on IG and just order one. That's probably the easiest way to do it. So with that 0 guard closed, I'm just tapping out that line and just tying that open blade to the number 1. Now I'm going right in with the number 2. And the number 2 is open. And I'm going to take that up, another inch or two, another inch and a half, whatever. And as I get close to the top of the head, the parietal ridge area, I'm really floating that clipper. And what I mean is I'm not digging into it, even though it may look like I'm going with the round of the head at sometimes. I'm actually just pulling away from the head a little bit, so there's really no pressure at all. And I'll do this all the way around, and then I'll close the lever and do just the regular 2 towards that line. The only problem I've found with having the Andis Master Blade on there so that you can use the purple magnetic guards, which everyone loves, is that when you're going from a 1 or 1 open to a number 2, it can really be hard to get that line out between there, the line that you see right now. So you'll see that I come back in with a number 1, or a 1.5 rather, and I kind of float that number 1 open between the 1 that I've already blended and the 2, so that way I can kind of flick at that line and take it out. I don't want to create another line, so I have to be real careful about using that 1 open between the 1 and the 2 to flick that line, which you'll see in just a minute. But there again, I close that number 2, and I'm just going beneath the dark line and just going up into that number 2 open that we already created, and just trying to blend it in. But as you can see, it's not blended in. I lost a little bit of video footage on for the left side, but it picked right back up in the back here. So right now I have the 1 on there again, and it's open. And now I may do 1 closed in the area where you see the wrinkles and the dips, because those wrinkles and dips actually cause shadows. And it doesn't matter if you go over them a million times with the same guard that you went everywhere else in that area on. Sometimes it's just going to stay looking dark. So you want to go shorter, whether that's putting the 0 guard back on or, you know, just closing the number 1 guard, whatever. You just got to find a way to get those out. It's not always about the length of the hair that creates a good looking fade. It's about looking at it and taking out the dark spots. It's about the shades of the hair. So if it looks darker, figure out a way to lighten it up so that the whole fade looks consistent all the way through. And that's what I'm working on right now. Just trying to get those dark spots out of there with the number 1, or there again a 0 guard if need be. And now right here in the area that I was talking about earlier, that dark line, what I'm doing, I have the 1 open and I'm actually raking at it with the teeth. So the blade is not flat against the head at this point. Whenever I'm trying to go from that 1 that we created, the 1 blended, to the 2 blended, and I have that line, instead of laying the blade flat against the head, I'm actually pulling the clipper out where it's just like the teeth of the clipper is up against the head, and I'm raking at it. You can kind of see it now. See how the angle of my clipper is right now? It's kind of up a little bit in the back, and that's because I'm just kind of raking and flicking at that line with the 1 open, because when the blade is flat against the head, see, there's a better angle. It's almost like scratching at it. But see, when the blade is flat against the head, or the guard is flat against the head, you're going to get a closer cut. But when you have a guard on it and you pull it out where the teeth are flat against the head, like the tips of the guard of the teeth, then you can start raking at it, and that makes that guard give you a little bit more length, so you can kind of tie that 1.5 to the 2 and make it look good. So see, as you can see, man, it's coming together. We knocked that line out, and then if I see any dark spots, I'm just going in, doing some detail work, knocking those out, so we get a nice blurry fade. So here he has a longer vertical bar, and we want to keep those lines as sharp as possible. So I'm combing those hairs forward, and I'm hitting those lines first, because if he brushes his hair forward and you have some short hairs, some long hairs, then you're going to have an issue. So I don't know what I was doing right there, but there might have been a long hair poking out from the side that I wanted to knock off. So now I'm just creating that C-cup area to just give the nice illusion of that low fade. And that's why we wanted to drop down in the beginning with the first guideline. We wanted to drop it down in the front, or angle it down, so it gives us more room to have a little C-cup. With my front edges, I like to start in the middle, and then I go to the highest point first, which for him, if you're looking at his head, it was on the left side. I'm working on that corner now, tying it into the vertical bar that we did earlier, and then I'll work my way across to the lower side to bring it up even with the middle and the left side. And I'm constantly brushing the hairs down, especially with his hair. They like to curl up in the front, and when he gets to brushing, there again, he's going to see hairs that I missed. So I'm brushing, and cutting, brushing, cutting to make sure that I get a nice clean look. As you can see, I tilted his head down a little bit, and what that does is it gives me a better angle to see the curve of the front edge. Now I'm throwing some 245 Onyx black color on his head. If you haven't got any of the Onyx color, you better order some. It's off the chain. I did spray a little bit too low, and I made his C-cup look a little bit rounder or farther back than I wanted to, but it is what it is. It'll come off and he'll be all right. So now I'm doing some detail work with the shear over comb, just in the area where I seen some dark spots, and I wanted to tie the fade that we created to the number 4 up top. And I'll do this all the way around the head to just make sure that all the dark spots are blended. But man, there is that low stretch drop fade. I hope you liked it. If you did, subscribe to this channel, man. Give it a like and hit the notification bell. God bless you guys. Peace. I'm out of here.